Hey guys, before we get into the episode, I just wanted to take a second to talk to you about 12 Strides and 12 Group Norms for Liberty and Recovery. This is a book by former guest of the show, Asher Azo. And what it is a deep dive into libertarianism and 12-step philosophy. Not only do you get to learn about how to apply those principles to your very own life, but you also get to see what it looked like for the recovery community going through lockdowns and the COVID hysteria. Also included at the end of the book is a fictional story about a man in recovery searching for his own son. You can find this book on Amazon, paperback, or it's also available on Kindle. I will include the link to the book in the show notes page for this episode, so please go check it out. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Clean Libertarian Podcast. And today I have a really solid episode lined out for y'all. This is Gruntpa. And if you've been around on Twitter, surely you've seen his tweets. He definitely hangs out in the Liberty circles. The man is just awesome. And one of the things that I've always appreciated about him is that he always has a very good take on recovery, and that's based upon his own. And so I wanted to get him on and talk about his story and kind of like how he sees this whole recovery process. And man, this conversation did not disappoint. I know that you guys will like it. So without any further ado, here is Gruntpa. All right, there we go. What's up, Gruntpa?
Howdy, sir.
Man, I'm really excited to have this conversation. Like, I've followed you on Twitter for a while. Seen your tweets, and I've really appreciated the way that you have approached discussing alcoholism and recovery. You know, those are two like really obviously near and dear things to myself, and it seems to be to you. And so, just the fact that you would take time out of your day to kind of provide some nuance and tell us your story, man. I'm really stoked to have you here.
It's good to be here. This is an important thing I think needs to be brought up a lot more. I think, even myself, I've kind of suffered in silence for a long time. And, in recovery, there's a stigma. I mean, we were just talking before we started here about, there's coming out as an alcoholic it's tough.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stigma and there's a lot of pressure to stay sober, whereas before nobody cared if you were drunk. And so, I've been trying to help people, in my own way. Like I kind of worked some of the steps, but I wasn't really good with it. I did some of, I went to AA for a bit, didn't stick with it, but like felt like I learned a lot of lessons. But yeah, I just, especially with the veteran community, and I feel like there's just a lot of stigma, and I'm tired of perpetuating it. I'll do what I can to show people that sober living's good and better, and then having a problem with drugs or alcohol is not the worst thing,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm just trying to do my part, my own little way.
Well, I think you're doing a hell of a job with it, man. I did want to ask, like, kind of take us back a little bit. Like, when did you start drinking, and when did that turn into an issue for you? I mean, I know that's probably asking you to lay out a lot of timeline there.
Yeah, it's funny because like we said before, man, this is the only podcast that I've ever dreaded almost, because you got to confess almost. I feel like I'm in a booth, but it's I started drinking really young, like really young. I had a family that likes to drink, and some of them will admit that they have a problem, and many of them won't. And I'm not throwing any of them under the bus, but like I grew up around it like quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I started, and it was allowed, I'll even say. So, I mean, I think I know where you're at. I saw it on your Twitter profile. So I was a couple hours south of you, just right on the Red River. Like I grew up in Texoma land, more or less. And, there's a lot of German Catholic communities down there. And, I've gone to gone to weddings and stuff, and they've seen people filling a baby bottle at a keg before. I'm not kidding. Like
Oh
they
my God.
grow the people there grow up drinking. And
Yeah.
I went to one of these small town high schools and I drank. My parents didn't see a huge problem with it. I mean, they were really worried about drunk driving.
Hmm.
So, my parents and other parents there at least were concerned with one part of it. And they'd furnish the beer though, as long as we didn't, as long as we didn't leave, as long as we didn't drive around. And I part of me understands why they thought that was a good move, because they were losing young people to drinking and driving, but nobody really paid attention to the later term effects. Plus, there's just, again, it's country people out there. I mean, they have no problem drinking beer midday, you know,
Nah,
like in
nah.
the middle of work. A lot of them run farms and dairies, and it's not a it's not uncommon to see a man get off the tractor, and kick out 10 cans of beer, and everybody
Yeah.
pretend like that's okay.
Right.
And so like I grew up that way, and I think the first time I knew I was drunk, I was actually with my family at a wedding. Um, and I want to say I was like 13 or 14.
Okay.
And so I was real young. Um, and just I really liked drinking. I think I had like some social anxiety growing up. Like I wasn't, like every kid does, but
Yeah.
drinking helped me overcome it, made me feel a lot cooler than I was, and made me
Yep.
feel accepted. And in that culture, like it did make you cooler and more acceptable. And yeah, I mean, I started drinking young. And so by the time I got my driver's license, because I lived out in the country, I just wanted to chase girls and drink beer. And that's what I did. Had
Yeah.
a couple
Got down
car
through there, huh?
wrecks. I mean, yeah, I had my driver's license, I want to say 4 days before I had my first drinking and driving accident, which was totally, we managed to cover it up. Like I was 16 in like 4 days. And I had a guy that I mean, I shouldn't have been friends with in hindsight. He was like 23 or something. But
Yeah.
he'd buy the kids alcohol and get them pot and stuff. Like he's a bad person in hindsight. Like looking back now, I'd go back and whip his
Yeah.
ass.
Yeah,
You know what I
but
mean?
but
Like
back then he was like the coolest dude ever though,
back
right?
then,
Like,
dude,
yeah.
he was super cool. I thought he was the coolest guy in the world. And so yeah, he bought me like a fifth of Jim Beam, and I was mixing it with Dr. Pepper. And yeah, ran into it was like I had a little truck and it was a standard transmission, and I was, peeling out and throwing gravel on some friends. We were back roading, and yeah, man, I hit a barbed wire fence at about like 45, 55 miles an hour through a
Ooh.
T-post through the windshield. My buddy wasn't wearing a seatbelt. He was with me. His head had hit the windshield. Like we're lucky that the T-post didn't hit him in the head.
Yeah. Yeah.
And popped two tires off the rim. And all my buddies were all like country kids, so we took the tires off, braced it up on some rocks and shit, and went and popped them back on at a gas station. And then just went home and told them a black cow was in the road. That was like I already knew the excuses at 16. Like, oh yeah, we were back roading, and some black cow got loose on the road, and
Yeah.
we went back and fixed the fence for the cattle, the fucking landowner. But yeah, I mean, so that was like I was already off to a good start. And then went off to, I'm sure you know where Denton, Texas is, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I got family there.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
yeah, so I went and moved to Denton as soon as I could. I graduated high school like a week later. I lived in Denton. Still drinking down there, down in, I can't remember the name of that street now. But yeah, I mean, went down there, partied, underage, got in fights, drank a lot, then joined the army, went to an airborne unit here at Fort Bragg, which is, worse. Like,
Yeah.
so, I mean, I basically went to drinking college and, went to the war, had to be sober for it, but came back just stupid, had like my first serious incident with drinking, like got into a big fight with a friend, actually, a big one where the cops were called and we beat the hell out of each other. And it was rough. And I had already been kicked out of the special forces um, training group, what they have here to teach you to be a Green Beret. Like I had passed selection and was on my way, and they tell you not to have any alcohol related to, events, which of course I promptly got arrested, or almost arrested, I should say, for a minor in consumption. Which they ended up just ticketing me and letting me off. But I had enough run-ins. But like, yeah, after the war, I came back crazy enough. Like it actually started manifesting. So I really kind of went sober for a bit, for about a year and a half or so.
Yeah.
And yeah, got back on just drinking beer, and it just got away from me at a certain point. Like I don't know how much more of the story you need, but like I went into drinking during the day, like I was a consultant. Um, was traveling on the road a lot, and that's another whole lifestyle of drunks. Like everybody that I was working with drank all the time,
Yeah.
and we drink, and yeah, you drink in the airport, you drink on the airplane, you
Yeah.
drink at dinner, and you drink after dinner, and this would be like Tuesday, Wednesday night. And then, I'd come home and I'd have these reports I'd have to write, and I'd get writer's block, and I'd say like, oh, I'll just get a couple beers, About three
Mm-hmm.
o'clock, I'd do that, and then it became about 2 o'clock and 1 o'clock, and noon, and pretty soon I was waking up, having a couple beers, get my reports written, and then the beers got to be expensive, right? So then I moved on to whiskey, and then the whiskey got to where I couldn't, I felt like I got sick of the taste, so then I went to vodka because I could mix it with more,
Yeah.
and it got to where there at the end, um, I was drinking. I mean, I did the equivalents when I was in. We're really getting ahead of ourselves, but when I was in rehab, I started doing the equivalents of how much I was drinking, because I was buying about 2 to 3 handles of 100 proof. Like I still know how much it costs to get you a New Amsterdam 100 proof handle, because
Dude.
I was buying them. And I was going to, I was doing the shit that people do. Like I wouldn't go to the same ABC store, because here in North Carolina they have ABC. Other states
Yeah.
like Texas, they have just privately owned ones, but here they're owned by the state, and so
Oh,
there's not a
really?
lot of them. Yeah, yeah. North
Oh,
Carolina, the
okay.
state owns them. They're run by a company, but they're owned by the state. And
Gotcha.
so yeah, like I was driving to different ones, right? So like that way they didn't think I was drunk, which they had to have known, because most of the time I was in there about 10 o'clock in the morning getting a handle of underproof vodka.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was drinking a lot, and yeah, it just got away from me. My whole life, I guess, like, don't want to dox how old I am, but let's just
You're
say that
good.
for more than 20 years, I was drinking pretty heavy, more heavy than most people would accept, normal people anyway.
Well, let me just say, man, I've been around for a while, and I've seen a lot of people come in who drank like you talked about, and they ain't never coming back, bro. Like that wet
So,
brain is a very real thing. And so
mhm.
it's a miracle. You are a walking miracle, man. That's huge.
it Yeah, I mean, this whole experience has been easy for me, and I hate to say that because I know how many people struggle. I don't know what it was, like I had a what they call a very high bottom, and I've had a very easy time since then. Like I sort of took to it. I don't know what it is. I've tried to break it down for people, and again, like I was saying before, I went through 12 step and I understood it.
Yeah.
But truth is, once somebody explained it to me, I was like, I do a lot of this already. I'm just a drunk. Like I just like being drunk. But as soon as I saw how dangerous it really was getting for me, that's when it was easy. So
Yeah.
yeah, I managed. I never. Go ahead.
I wanted
Oh,
to ask you, like, what kind of changes did you make in your personal life, like out the gate? Like, what were some of the bigger things that you had to do? And I know you said it was easy, but surely you had to, you know, fine tune a couple of things in your life, right?
I did. Yeah. I mean, so this high bottom we talk about. I mean, I won't go into a lot more detail, but um, I fell one night. Actually, I got too drunk. It was my mother had died from cirrhosis, right?
Hmm.
Like,
Sorry.
and my sister too. And so about 2 years after the sister, but on the anniversary of the mother, you know how it doesn't make any sense. Like I say it now, I was like, yeah, I was drinking on the anniversary of my mom dying from cirrhosis, and like
Man.
it sounds stupid, but that's what I was doing.
I
And
get it.
yeah, I fell and hit my head real bad and started thinking about all I had to lose, because I've never been in trouble with the law. I've got a pretty good career. I've got people that care about me. I've got a great girlfriend. My son, I'm in his life. I've got half custody of him. And yeah, I started thinking about all I had to lose. And so in order to make those changes, like, my girlfriend was probably the most helpful. And, I told her I wanted to get sober, and, I had to go to the emergency room to get my head looked at, had to make sure that I didn't have a bleeding brain and all that kind of shit. People were worried about me. I had a real bad concussion. So I told her, yeah, I wanted to get sober, didn't know how, admitted that I had a real bad problem, because I'd hit it really well. I'd spent all that time drunk, but, I work from home, and, at that time my son was younger. Like, nobody just really knew. Like, I was able to just kind of keep a wrap on it, mostly just really get tore down at night, and during the day just drink enough to give myself, keep me out of the DTs, keep me somewhat organized.
Yeah.
But yeah, I told her I wanted to get sober, and um, she found me a really great place up in Maryland. Actually, at that time she lived up by DC, and we just said that I'd go up there, and they offered free counseling to veterans, which, I'm forever
Nice.
thankful, because I found out how much that shit costs.
It's
Like,
expensive, man. Yeah.
bro. I mean, that's one of the things where I see people, they'll tell folks, "Oh, well, you should just get sober. You should just go to rehab." And I'm like, "Yeah, spend the rest of your life in debt. You might as well go to college." Like, for the kind of
For
money
sure.
that
For sure.
it is crazy. It blew my mind. But yeah, I mean, so she found this place that offered it to me for free, and I was thankful. But one of their conditions, once I told them how much I was drinking, they're like, "You can't come here unless you detox. Like, you got to fully
Mm,
detox." And so I had to go to a detox facility, and but because it was so far from home, I knocked out detox. I went into this place, and it was outpatient, but it was like, I want to say it was 2 hours. No, it was 3 hours a day, 4 days a week.
huh.
That I had to go up. That I had to go up there. It was after hours. A lot of people from drug court, a lot of professionals. A lot of I swear there's an entire genre of drunk housewives. Like, people aren't realizing it. But
For
my
real.
my de- my detox was just loaded with these drunk ass milfs, that are trying to get their shit together, because I guess their
Yeah.
husbands weren't having it. Like these trophy wives that just didn't have anything to do, take Xanax and drink all day.
That's
And
it, buddy.
so yeah. So, like, I went up there, and I did that for almost like 3 months. Just stayed with my girlfriend, got away from my house. Like, you know, living alone's not good for rehab, trying to recover. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, just ate good food and got some exercise and hung out with somebody that cared for me, and did 12 hours a week, basically, of what was essentially like just really hardcore AA type shit, and had some really good counselors, and went to therapy, and yeah, just did everything I could just to get through it. Just kind of white knuckled the first 3 months. But again, like, once I got through like the first month, it sort of just got easy. But the big key really is find some old hat drunks or drug addicts, some people that have been doing that shit for a long time. Like, don't hang around people your age. Don't listen to anybody your age. They don't know shit. I don't care how well they can quote the big book. They don't know a fucking thing. Like,
That's
in
it.
fact, the more people that quote that book around you, the more you should find somebody else. Like,
Fucking
find somebody
A.
that's got somebody that's got some real practical experience, and people won't lie to you. I mean, I understand that there's a physiological addiction associated with alcohol, but you didn't get physiologically addicted until you developed a bad habit. And you've got to address all those parts of your character that made you a fucking drunk or an addict. Like, you have to do that. You can't make an excuse. Can't say that it's because it's in your blood or your parents did it or none of that shit. The moment you do that, you're just right back on the streets. Like, it's
Yeah.
your fault. Like it is ultimately your fault that you became a drunk or a drug addict. And I'm not saying that to hurt anybody's feelings, like, because I'm one of them. But yeah, I went through all that and got to where I thought I was comfortable going home. You know, I had cleared the house of all alcohol before I'd left, and I did that mostly by drinking it before I left. But you know, when I finally
Can't let it go
returned
to
home,
waste
like,
now. Come on now.
well, that was 100%. Like, I mean, I drank all the booze in the house. I take it back. I found one airplane bottle in a bag when I got back, and I found one beer in a drawer of all places. Like, I don't know, when I was drunk, I was just putting shit everywhere. But yeah, I got to where I was comfortable, you know, and got to where I could stay alone and feel fine. And I did some more AA when I got back. But the program it just didn't work for me, I guess. Like, and I don't mean to say that it didn't work, because I truly believe in it. Like, I
Mhm.
absolutely believe the program works for people. And I think that if you're getting sober, you have to go. I just don't think you have to stay. Like, I
Right.
don't think you have to stay. You know, and bless them. Like, there is a group of people that go to those things every week and have been doing it for 25, 30 years. And they're the people out there getting everyone sober. They really
Mhm.
are.
Yep.
I couldn't do it, because, you know, for every one of them, there's 10 that are in and out. And like I said, like, coming in and getting a white chip and telling you that what Bill says about shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't take it. Yeah.
They call it
But you
they
really
call it
got to.
terminally hip and fatally cool whenever you can quote that big book and not know what the fuck it even means, you know.
Right.
You know.
I mean, it's like preachers and shit in church, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
I've honestly seen people turn sobriety into a religion, and
Yes.
still have the same demons as, you know, like the preacher who ends up in the hotel room with a crack pipe. Like, you know, they just
Yeah.
they'll tell you all day how to find Jesus, but they don't know where he is.
Oh.
And it sucks. You know, sobriety, and it can be dangerous. I mean, I think you said you came from like the NA land. I
Mhm.
mean, I think the joke always is, if you want to know how to score, go to NA. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
sometimes a really rough crowd. Not that AA
Well,
is a lot better.
I think it's kind of like this, right? Going to any 12-step meeting and being shocked about the quality of individuals that are in there is kind of like being shocked that there's somebody with a broken arm in the ER waiting room, right? Like
Right.
you ain't going in there because you got shit figured out. And
Right.
and definitely, you know, I there's some spots that are worse than others. There's some spots that are better than others. It's just all about finding
Mhm.
your spot. But there's a lot of like what you said about, like, you know, because a lifelong 12-step recovery is not a path that everybody's going to take, and that's 100% okay. And you have the right attitude about it, because what the attitude that you have about it, like, I respect 100%. What I don't respect is the individuals who will say, oh, that shit didn't work for me, they just, you know, blah blah blah, and they just want to rip on them. But it's like, man, there's a lot of folks that are getting clean and sober in those rooms. um yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I'm
I
not trying to go off on a
I'll
tangent
say it
on that. Sorry,
again.
bud.
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't mind the tangent, because I mean, I've said this to every person that's come to me. You know, I won't sponsor people. I will talk to a lot of people about sobriety. I will not be your sponsor. I do not have a stake in your sobriety. You know, like, your sobriety is yours. I am not going to be a part of that shit. Like, you know, and I had a conversation with there's a young paratrooper here that I've been talking to for a long time, and I'm really proud of him. But we were talking about it, and he was like, "Yeah, you know, I got people that want me to sponsor them." And I was like, "Who sponsored you?" And he was like, "Well, kind of, you know, like, I feel like, you know, you've helped me out." And I'm like, "Yeah, but that I will talk to you about what it's like to be sober. I will not help you become sober. Like, we will share our own journey and discuss how that goes. But I don't, you know, if you want to be sober, you need to go be sober. You don't need me to help you get sober." Like,
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of this stuff, but I'll always steer them into the rooms, like, you know. And if you go to one and, like you were saying, and it doesn't work out, you don't feel the vibe, you don't get it. Because I've gone into some, and it's like, you know, it's like Roman Catholic Church. Like, you gotta be very quiet when they're doing their, you know, their whole intros and outros, and you gotta it's very structured, and you have to come in carrying all your books and dress nice. And then I've gone to other ones where, I mean, you can't hardly hurt everybody inside. They're all just outside smoking cigarettes and talking.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, you got to find a couple of ones, but yeah, for a young person that's trying to get sober, or any person, I think it's a great place to start. Better than anywhere else, you know?
Well, one thing I did want to talk to you about. So like, I work in mental health and recovery in that field. And, at every agency that I've worked at, the veterans specific, outpatient services struggle very much so. Not
Mm-hmm.
only reaching, the clients or participants, but also, keeping staff. It just seems like it's a tougher subsection of that industry. And I didn't know, I was just going to ask if you had any insight into that, like, cause I know you won't sponsor anybody, but surely you've talked to enough veterans and
I've talked to
associated
a
with
lot.
enough.
Yeah.
What's up with that? What?
I did another discussion with Braxton actually about veterans and PTS specifically. It touched a little bit about, alcoholism and drug abuse, but I have a theory, and it's not probably very popular, but you don't join the military because there's something good going on in your life, for the most part. There are people that are very patriotic and love their country and want to serve. They're not probably the majority of people. Most of the folks that join, and there's a lot of leftists or libertarians and ANCAPs they make a lot of hay with, like, the propaganda, and they're just taking poor people and running them through the mill for foreign wars. And the reason why that hurts so bad is it's true in many ways. It's very true. A lot of people join because they've got something in them that I wouldn't say is normal. Like, my own reasons for joining the military are pretty complex, but um, I've already kind of recounted, like, how my upbringing was a little atypical, and had a lot
Mhm.
of substance abuse in it. And I think that most of those folks that join are already running from something or have some sort of damage, and then they get there, and it's rough. I mean, even if you didn't deploy, and even if you weren't in combat arms, I mean, the environment's different. It can be hard. It can be really hard on people. And there's also a culture of, you don't cry about it. Like, you don't accept failure, right? Like, there's an entire ethos about, like, not accepting failure and never surrendering and never quitting. And a lot of people wrongly apply that to bad habits. They
Mm.
have a bad habit, and they're like, oh well, this is how it is, and this is how I've always done it. And they don't want to admit that they're wrong. They don't want to admit that they failed. They don't want to do any of those things. And you pile on something, like trauma. So let's say that you did deploy. Let's say that you were in combat arms or something similar. Like, you've really made a cocktail there. And every military unit I've ever heard about, I mean, I was only in one, and they are famously heavy drinkers. But almost all of them that I've heard of, that's how you bond, that's how you celebrate, that's how you cope, that's how, like, I mean, I can tell you that I did it. It didn't matter what emotion I was feeling. It was inspiration to drink. If I had a good day, I got promoted, I got a bonus, whatever, something good happened to me, I'm gonna go drink and celebrate. I had a really bad day. You know what I mean? I had a really bad day or a really long day. Now I'm gonna drink to make myself feel better. I think that the veterans are susceptible to that, and they're just pig-headed. I hear a lot of veterans, try to badmouth the VA, and some of them are successful because the VA does occasionally suck. But I've heard from veterans all the time, oh yeah, we just don't ever help. We don't ever help our veterans with mental health, and I have never really seen that happen. I've seen, like, the VA drop the ball, but if you were actually committed to fixing yourself, there are a ton of resources, and that outpatient thing that is a perfect example. I mean, those folks, that was an expensive treatment that I received in a very nice part of Maryland that, um, like they had good cadre and staff, and I mean, they really had their shit together. And just because I had served, they didn't say like combat vets, they didn't say Navy SEAL, Ranger, Green Beret, special anybody. I mean, anybody that served could have got in there and received the same treatment. And so, like, yeah, I don't know what it is about veterans either. I mean, I think some of what I said here is maybe applied. Maybe it's deeper, but I just really think that veterans head in there with problems and they just compound it worse, and then they don't seek help for whatever reason, and I don't know why.
So, like when you were at this facility, was there anybody that kind of spoke your language that was able to reach you in a way that because like, admittedly, look, man, I tried to join, and I
Mm-hmm.
was too big, and so I was working with a recruiter, and I was losing weight, and I was like 5 pounds away, and then I got introduced to heroin within that same time frame, and it was a
Yikes.
wrap, dude. So like, yeah, military wasn't going to happen. But that
Mm-hmm.
being said, I never got to look behind the curtain. Like, I don't know what service looks like. I don't know beyond talking to individuals like you, like, so working in this field, I feel kind of ill equipped to make those connections, although I do try. And
Yeah,
so I'm just kind of curious if personal experience is something that weighs heavily in that first interaction that wakes somebody up or not.
I'll tell you it didn't. Like, because none of my counselors served, not one. Um,
Okay.
it was in a part of, I mean, Maryland is Maryland, and there are not a lot of red blooded hoorah America Americans there. You know what I mean? Like, nobody there
Yeah.
is joining the military. And the one that got me though was there was this older gentleman named Maurice, I think was his name, and he was from of all places, he's from New York, from Manhattan, and he got real bad strung out back in, like, I don't know, the 70s. I like older people. I've always been this way. I hate young people. I hate people my own age most of the time. But I like talking to older men. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they got their shit together finally, even if they don't. They at least they have
Hmm.
some knowledge and wisdom. And this dude had been sober 35 years or something like that. Like, he was on
Wow.
a subway, super loaded, and then just decided he's gonna give it up, and then did, and never went back, never relapsed. And that was really important to me because, like, it's always been my goal. It's like, once I gave this stuff up, I wanted to give this stuff up. I didn't want to go back. And I still have very fresh memories about what it was like. And yeah, I mean, he was the one that got me, and it was through. He just had an approach. I mean, it was almost like a military approach. I mean, he just kept it very simple. You weren't able to go in there and bullshit. You weren't able to talk about how it was somebody else's fault. Like, he acknowledged, like I do now, that yes, there are physiological issues at play, and that addiction is, a real sickness. But it's not like he caught the cold, and it's not genetic like the way that a lot of people make it out. And yeah, he was real hard on people about it. The moment that you'd start feeling sorry for yourself, and like in the army, we'd say, like, sitting on your rucksack and crying. The moment you started that shit, he'd just shut it down. And if you started making excuses about why you didn't want to be sober, he'd tell you you're just making excuses.
Mm.
And that worked on me. Like, I feel like, you don't have to serve to reach a veteran, but it depends. I mean, I think if I was more fresh out of the army, that maybe wouldn't have fit. But, like, I had shed a lot of that skin by now. I've been out almost twice as long as I was ever in. So it's not as important to me. And so I'd say that, like, if you're dealing with somebody who's fresh out of the military, it probably matters more to them whether or not you serve. But the longer they get from the day that they got out, from the day they ETS'd, it won't matter. Most of it's about attitude. And you got to use, like I was saying, a lot of those things that we were talking about, that I think prevents a veteran from getting sober. Some of these items about, like, not wanting to quit or give up or admit failure, you can
Yeah.
use those against them. Like, you can use those against, if you can just continue to demonstrate that their drinking or drug abuse, even if it's small, eventually leads to failure, and that seemed to be the thing, like, that really worked on me is, I'd went into rehab thinking, I'm just going to slow down my drinking. I'm just going to,
Regulate it.
I'm going to drink less. I just need a little coaching on how to how to step back. And, when they told me, you're never going to drink again, I was like, this is awful. I did not sign up for this. Like, I don't, because I didn't know how to cope through it, like I thought the biggest thing for me is I was like, I'm just going to be so bored, like life is just so boring without alcohol. Like I'm going to need something to stimulate me. And, now I'm like, I don't have any fucking time for anything. I'm too busy, like there's no such thing as boredom in my life. I'm fucking stacked. I got too much shit going on. So yeah, I mean, you can use that stuff against them. I feel like you can tell them, like, hey, this always starts as just a couple beers, and it always, you got to play the tape forward is like my favorite analogy. There's, all this shit's filled with like bumper sticker fucking analogies and lingo and bullshits, like saying, but the play the tape forward thing always worked on me because it was always like, this is true. Like I could go back, I could go right now and I can go buy a 12-pack of beer and I might have one or two out of that, every couple of nights. It might sit in my fridge for a year, but eventually I'm back on New Amsterdam 100 proof. And, and people don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. And so, like, yeah, I think veterans, like, if you pointed that out and just said that, like, you're just not capable of that shit anymore. Like the new test is not drinking, and every time, and I do this with this younger children. It's like, he's, like I said, he's a paratrooper. He came from where I come from, and he's decided to be sober. And what I tell him all the time is like, if you drink, you're a pussy. Like, right, like you're weak. Like, you're weak. Like, that's a coping mechanism. Like, that's a crutch. Like, you can't take reality anymore. Like, reality's too tough for you. You gotta climb in your bottle. Like, that shit works on a veteran because, like, like Braxton talked about this in his book about, like forcing them to walk. Like there's a mental game veterans play about how tough they are and how strong they are and how they can go through anything. And you can use that shit against them by just saying, like, oh, you can go through anything? Well, fucking sober up then. Like, that's actually harder. It's harder than any of the shit you've ever done. It's harder than anything I'd done,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if they give into it, then they fail. That somehow works.
I like that, man. I like that quite a bit. Just while we're talking, something that I am curious about is while somebody is active duty, and they're stationed somewhere, or, is there more risk of openly admitting, hey, I have a drinking problem at that time?
I think there is, and it sucks.
Yeah.
So I've talked to somebody. Of course, I had no interest in sobriety when I was in. And none of the people I was with ever did either. Same thing with mental health. I mean, all of us could have done with a lot of therapy back then, and but there was a stigma. There was an informal stigma. And then I believe there's very likely a formal one when it comes to admitting that stuff. Like, I don't think there should be. They have the resources. I mean, this is one of those things I'll go back to saying. They have them. If you want to sober up in the military, they will hook you up and they will get you sober. Will that hurt your career? It might. Especially if you are in some sort of special operations type capability. If you, fly in a helicopter or something, like, I think they do have a, even a formalized way of, I don't want to say punishing. They wouldn't say it's punishment, right? But there is the stigma. I mean, this goes back to what we were saying before. Like, for whatever reason, you can be a drunk, and everybody will know you're a drunk, but they'll accept you as a drunk. The day that you say, "I'm sober, I want to quit drinking," the pressure's on, right? Like, you got to actually mean it, and you got to show it. And then, if you slip, the it's a bigger failure. You know, you can drink for months straight being a drunk, but the moment you just say that I'm an alcoholic and I want to stop being an alcoholic and you slip up, I feel like there probably is, and I'm sure that, you know, some in the military that are higher ranking or something would hear this and say there's not. You know, we make sure that we have safeguards and stuff, but that's just not what I've heard. You know, the folks that I've talked to that have gotten sober tend to keep it kind of under wraps, and you know, their friends and close family members know about it, but if they're doing something, they're not doing it through formalized channels. Like you know, they're getting help or treatment through, you know, and I don't want to say this also to like discourage anyone from getting it, you know, like, cause I'll tell you the truth, like, fuck your career. If you're a drunk and you need help, fuck your career, start over, go get a new career, get out of the military.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's nothing's worth your sobriety. Nothing.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I got sober for my son, but I tell you right now, and this is a weird fucking kind of false dichotomy. But if somebody was like, "We're gonna take your boy, or you're gonna drink," I wouldn't drink. It ain't worth it. Like, you know, like it's more important to me now than anything. And so, like, you know, if you're in the military right now and you're hearing this, and you somehow feel that what I'm saying is going to discourage you from getting sober, I'm gonna tell you right now, your career or nothing else is worth it. Like, go get sober. The shit'll kill you.
Dude, that's good shit. Yeah. And I will second that. I mean, there's so much more to this thing than just not drinking. There's a lot of benefits that you don't, a lot of them are unique to the individual. It's not, you know, like, granted, we all kind of share the same milestones and whatnot, but like, I'm sure there are things that have stood out to you as an individual, you know, since you've gotten sober, that you're like, holy shit, I didn't know I was missing out on this. You know, I didn't know that this is what life is. Yeah. What would you say? And just real quick, I'm not trying to hold you hostage here or anything, but just
good.
kind of
I get all the time.
What would you say are some of those things, man? Like, is there anything you can recollect that kind of like that light bulb went off?
You know, the biggest ones I can recollect everything. You know.
Like, oh, okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? I used to wake up in the morning and I'd you know, first I'd go to text messages, then I'd go to phone calls, then I'd go to social media, just to figure out what the fuck happened to me. You know what I mean? Like, what did I say? Who did I talk to? Who do I got to run damage control on? All right. Like, when was the last time I remember talking to somebody? What was it about? Like, right. And a lot of uncomfortable conversations like, oh, hey, you know, how's it going? Just waiting to see whether they'd come and give me shit about what I did or said the night before.
Yeah.
Like, so, yeah, I mean, the first one is just recollection. I mean, what can I recollect? Everything for the last 3 years. I can tell you the names of people I hung out with, stuff I did. Couldn't do that for decades. There's blank spots in my mind. There's an entire trip, like, for instance, for St. Louis, where I remember driving there and I remember driving back, and I don't remember much in between. I got a tattoo. I'd found a really nice lady to keep me company for like a week, but other than that, like, I don't remember much. St. Louis was a nice town, I hear. Like, I got pictures of me there, but I don't remember it. You know, like, there was an 82nd Airborne convention, and I want to say it was like 2008 in St. Louis. I might be off on the date, but yeah, I mean, I went to it. I signed in at that desk, but I don't remember shit. I have no idea. Man. Like, yeah, and that was even back when I wasn't like as serious an alcoholic as I ended up. But yeah, the recollections one. You know, my careers, I've always been blessed. Like, I like to work. I like the job I do, but I wasn't doing as well as I'm doing now. You know, like, my time with my son, you know, like, I'm way better father, you know, because I'm more present. I'm not trying to think, you know, I'm trying to think about what I need to do to stay sober enough around him and kind of manage my addiction or something around him. You know, my girlfriend, like, my relationship's better, you know, like, she doesn't hate talking to me half the day, right? Because I'm not so loaded that I'm just making up nonsense and saying the same thing 500 times.
Right.
Yeah. The thing about being a drunk, really, though, is about your energy. And I didn't know this, but part of the problem with drinking, it's not just the DTs. Like the DTs are bad, and I got them. Like I got them bad enough, like that I had to seek treatment to make sure that like I didn't die when I quit. I couldn't quit cold turkey. The problems that I was having was like these cycles, and apparently it's a real thing where depression and anxiety. I would drink until the point where I would be pretty depressed at night. Yeah. And then in the morning I would wake up with severe anxiety. And, it started messing with my head. Like, and I had used the excuse of PTS, because everybody accepts that. Nobody's going to mess with a veteran that says, oh, the war, and I felt so bad about what I did in the war and what happened. And I learned to use that. Like, the truth was I was depressed because I was drunk, and everybody knew I was drunk, and I didn't want to tell everybody that I drank too much. I wanted to tell people that I was suffering PTS because they'd leave me the fuck alone about it, right? Like, nobody really wanted to dig. They leave me alone. If I'd told everybody the truth and said I drink too much, they'd have dug. They started trying to hold me accountable to it, And so, like, I'd even convinced myself that I had this real bad PTS problem, and that was why I drank. But the truth is, I don't really have a severe PTS problem. I think I have it, but I don't have. It's not severe. It's a really light form of PTS, and what I just had was I had a really bad drinking problem, and so. Yeah, getting out of that depression and anxiety loop was great, So yeah, being able to remember people, seeing, my career take off, having my, spending more time with my child, having more time for hobbies and having more money to do stuff, the ABC store, I'm sure they noticed it in their bottom line. Like when I quit giving them so much money. I mean, like I bet they had to raise the taxes up here in Carolina just to make up for the shortfall. Because yeah, man, I mean, there's a lot more Basil Hayden and New Amsterdam on the shelves. Like,
yeah, right on. Well, man, one last thing. This is what I ask everybody who comes on and shares their story to do, and you already kind of did it, but I wanted you to revisit it just real quick, man. I want you to take a minute here or two and address that person who may or may not be listening, who's struggling to find a way out. Just what do you want to say to them?
That that it is your fault that you are this way. That it is not somebody else's fault. And that every day that you tell yourself you're going to make it better and don't, is a day wasted, because I know what you're doing every morning, and I know how you feel, and one of these days you're going to have to do it, or it's going to hurt you bad enough that you're going to have to do it. And it's better to have a high bottom than a really low one. And I've seen both. Like I've seen your Xanax soccer mom, I just need to get sober because my husband is going to leave me. And those are the lucky ones. But then I've seen these other people that live on the streets, that their family will never talk to them again. They'll never have a job that'll earn any kind of money, and they'll never have anything. And you can easily end up there, on a pipe, on a needle, or in a bottle. And you got to give that shit up. And then once you start doing it, you'll see it. It's absolutely worth it, but it's never going to be easy, and you're not going to get there until you admit it's you. It's not some sickness. It's not some genetic thing. I mean, that's a side of the rectangle, but it ain't the long one. The long side of it is the part where it's you, and you got to figure out what it is that it's going to finally get your ass sober, and you stick with it.
Man, that right there is the type of shit that got me sober. That right there, that no bullshit about it. Listen, take some accountability. It's time to own up to your bullshit. That is what I needed. There's a phrase in NA that doesn't really get spoke a whole lot anymore, but it's work the steps or die, motherfucker. It's that hardcore, straight up, this is how it is, reality check. And, but there's also a lot of compassion that's in that. It's not just for the sake of being
compassion. Yeah. I mean, look, you need a hug too. Like I'm not here to just slap people around.
Right.
But the truth is nobody gets sober over a hug.
Right.
You know, like that compassion shit doesn't keep anybody off the streets.
Right.
Like what tends to do it is some life event, something bad has happened to them where they're like, I don't want this shit anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I don't like to force people into those scenarios, you know, but they've got to confront that reality because, yeah, compassion will keep you sober, but it won't make you sober.
Right. Yeah, for sure, man. This has been a very amazing conversation. Like, I can't tell you how honored that I am that you came on and talked about this, but also that you are helping out other people. You know, that you're actively being who you are, you know, in the world, because we need more people like you, man. So thank you.
Appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I don't take compliments well, you know. Just the truth is like, you know, people got to come out on this shit. Like, it's a real problem, you know. Alcohol's always been a problem, but with like fentanyl and some of this other shit, like, you know, we got to get these people, like, they got to get their families back together, got to get their lives back together. I mean, it's not just hurting them; it's hurting everybody. You know, This is a real problem in this country, and it's not going to get better until people start admitting it, facing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, without a doubt, man. No sugarcoating it at all, man. I know 5 this last week, 5. And my, you know, I know it's like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but it's not even that far off for me, man. These are all acquaintances. 5 fucking dead, not gone, never going to come back around. It's just, you know, it is what it is, man. It fucking sucks. But, more stories like yours, more stories like mine, more interactions with other people, you know, one by one, we will make a difference, you know, and,
Hope so.
And I think people will wake up to it, man.
I think
Grandpa, thank you so much for coming on, and you always have an open invite, buddy. Anytime you want to come on.
Cool. Come back then. All right, buddy.
All right, man. And there you have it. Thanks a lot to Gruntpa for coming on, brother. You have a great story. Thank you all for listening to it. And yeah, if you ever have any questions or you want to talk about recovery, absolutely reach out to me. I'm always here for you. So, you know, one of the things that I've been talking about doing, and, you know, I told you all about, was that I was starting up that harm reduction organization. And one of the cool things is that as soon as that interview had let out, I checked my phone and there was a couple of missed calls, and I was able to go out and give a couple of doses of Narcan to a couple of people. One of the people was needing it for a loved one that they were concerned about, and another one was like, you know, concerned about kind of what they were doing in life. And I was able to be there for them, and not only be there for them, but also talk about recovery because they'd asked about it, you know. And so that's kind of that bridge that I was hoping would be present in this deal. And there's oftentimes there's things that I do in life where I feel like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be, and this is exactly that. You know, there's a lot of controversy around something like an SSP program, but at the end of the day, I know that what I'm doing is helping other people, and the support that I've gotten from the community that I found myself in and from all of y'all has been absolutely wonderful. So thank y'all so much for helping me do this, you know, helping me follow my passion and do the things that I feel like I need to be doing right now. So that'll take us right into the song of the day. I have the Lost Dog Street Band, and I think I might have played this song for y'all before in the past. I can't remember. If it is a repeat, I apologize, but you know what? This is One Shot to Wake. It's a damn good song, and I feel like it blends really good with with this episode that we did. So I love y'all so much. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see y'all next week.
so I don't shake. Oh, have I done? One shot to kill, one shot so I ain't ill. Oh, have I done? One shot to cure, one shot 'cause I ain't sure. Oh, have I done? Oh, I spent every dime, drank every drop, even gambled my shoes. Well, if wind was loose and lies were truth, I'd still be drunk and you'd be blue. One shot to wake, one shot so I don't shake. Oh, have I done? Come in, dear, I can't see clear and I don't understand. It was Christmas on the island and now it's New Year's on the Rio Grande. One shot to wake, one shot so I don't shake.